kind of started writing at Rolling Stone, writing about musicians. I started moving into television, first CNN and then BET and then later MSNBC. I do a bunch of podcasts now. I'm working on more books. I'm working on a movie, a bunch of things. But just one thing for storytelling that I think about is I have all the information, but I have to think, what do you not know? What does the audience not know? And how do I put the information in a particular order such that it will be interesting to the audience? Sometimes when I'm telling a story, I don't want you to know anything of where we're going, right? Some movies, it just starts out with the boy or the girl leaves home and they go on a journey. Sometimes, if I think the initial part of the journey may seem boring, and then we're going to get to the exciting stuff, I may say, you need a glimpse of where we're going so that you're stuck on this. So sometimes the movie or the story starts with like, and then he was standing over the body with a knife dripping with blood when everybody walked in and it seemed obvious that he had killed him. And he's like, no. And then, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Mm-hmm. So now I will follow you on this long road, which may seem boring because I know we're going to eventually, someone will get killed and there will be a confusion. And so, sometimes I want you to know a piece of the later story. Sometimes I want you to know nothing, but it's always to say, what do you not know? And how can I bring you through it in an interesting way that will keep you compelled, right? Because the storyteller wants you to be always interested, always on the edge of your seat, always saying, and then what? And then what? That's like the most pure relationship, right? Because as we get older, we've seen a bunch of stories, so we start to be jaded and we're like, oh, I know where this is going. He's going to end up married to her. We just don't know how, or he's going to end up killing him. But when you're a kid, like a little kid, you haven't seen 1,000 stories, you don't know what's going to happen. And I start to tell you a story, if I just stop and you'll be like, and then what? And if I can get you into the sense of, and then what, that is really important. I tend to want to start with a character, right? Somebody is but the character in action, somebody is doing something. Want to avoid dreams, want to avoid the very beginning of the story, like so-and-so wakes up and then want to begin with somebody in motion that matters. So quite often we talk about like in medias res, already in motion. If there's a car crash that will shape the whole story, we may see the person walking across the street and then they get hit by the car. We may see them get the coffee that will be distracting them as they're walking across the street when they get hit by the car. But everything that we see matters, right? So it's not just, we don't have just extraneous things. This is like, like my mom is a terrible storyteller, and she basically is like a camera where she just shows you everything that came into the lens. And I'm like, it doesn't matter that you closed the door and turned on the radio. That has nothing. These are red herrings that, and then you ran into a red light. It doesn't fucking matter. Like these points don't matter. But like, when I'm telling you a story, I want everything to be there for a purpose, or I start to feel like the storyteller does not have control of themselves and the storytelling mechanism. I want to feel like, like when you watch your favorite movie for the 5th time and you see like every piece matters, every, election, right? Remember Reese Witherspoon, Matthew Broderick, one of my favorite movies early on, he throws something in the trash and then he misses the trash and it's a mess. And you're like, why are you showing that? And then late in the movie, I'm going to ruin it for the few of you who haven't seen it, but you should have seen it already. Late in the movie, the janitor unmasks his evil plan and leads to his downfall. And like, oh my God, this is why you have him basically shitting on the janitor in the first scene, because then in the 21st scene, in the penultimate scene, he's going to come back and get screwed by the janitor. And like, when you have that sense of like everything matters, as the audience, you're like, yes, we are in the hands of a storyteller who cares about us, as opposed to somebody who's just like, just telling you everything that happened. And I don't want to know everything that happened. I want to know everything that matters. But I do also want to hear your questions, so I know that I'm on what you guys want to talk about. So who wants to ask a question about storytelling? Anybody?
While they're thinking, you know, most of the folks in here are either in marketing or PR. They may be in advertising, but storytelling is so important to what they do as strategic writers.
You know,
How might they? Go
one
ahead.
thing I see in advertising that I prefer, the person who uses the product should be lionized in some way. You will be smarter, you will be cooler, you will be better if you use the product. Occasionally you see ads where the person who uses the product looks like a fool or looks like an idiot. Why not elevate that person, right? Like, sometimes in advertising, it's quite a little story in terms of Jill has a problem. Here's Jill's world. Jill has a problem. We can solve Jill's problem. So you're telling a story, but we have to quickly communicate. Here's Jill's world. Jill's world is very much like yours, but Jill has a problem, which you probably have also. And then this new product solves the problem. So, so much of storytelling is, here's a character with a desire, probably a universal desire, probably something that the audience will empathize with. Like, I understand why it's important to want X. The audience values that thing that the character desires. The character is completely defined by their desire. And then there's a hurdle. And the story is in the surmounting of the hurdle. In a movie, that part, surmounting the hurdle, will take an hour. In a commercial, surmounting that hurdle will take 1.5 seconds, right? It's just as long as for the announcer to say, if you use this toothbrush and your mouth will be clean, and you'll have lots of friends and you'll feel comfortable at the party to smile. But that notion of like, here's a character has a desire, Jill has the desire to be able to smile at the party without feeling anxiety. Hurdle, she's not sure if her toothpaste is getting the job done. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. If you use Crest, it gets the job done 100% of the time, solves her problem. She's at the party, big smile, super confident, problem solved, right? So the character is defined by their desire, and they're overcoming the hurdle to the hurdle to them getting to their desire. But who else?
That's good. Anybody else have a question? I have another one, but I want someone from the class to speak up.
Maybe we should call people.
You
Yes,
said
Anna.
that like never start anything from a dream or waking up. How do you kind of avoid other cliches like that in storytelling?
I mean, I want to think about, I don't want to think about how does the character begin. I want to think about what is their desire and what is the hurdle that they're going to deal with, and how do I most quickly get to that. I mean, if you were to imagine Jill, Jill wakes up and deals with this and that and the